This is Eastern Utah's news and weather station. 107.3 FM and 750 AM. KOAL, Price.
Welcome to Meet the Primary Candidates. Today we hear from Emery County Commissioner candidates David Sebring and Dennis Worwood.
Hello and welcome to Meet the Primary Candidates here on KOAL 107.3 FM and 750 AM, as well as on YouTube at KOAL Castle Country Focus. I'm your moderator for this evening, Aidan Mortensen. Today, we'll be meeting with the candidates for Emery County Commissioner, Dennis R. Worwood and David H. Sebring. Over the next hour, they'll be answering questions emailed in by the community. If you want to be involved in future Meet the Candidate events, you can email election2024@koal.net. Again, that is election, not elections. Now, before we get started, I'd like to go over the rules and format for this evening. Tonight's event is open to the public, and as such, we'd like to remind those in attendance that this is not a debate. So we'd ask to please refrain from cheering, booing, or anything else that might distract the candidates. We'd also ask that you please silence your cell phones to, again, limit distractions. Early voting will be at the Emery County Clerk/Auditor's Office located at 75 East Main Street in Castledale, beginning Tuesday, June 11th, and that will run until Friday, June 21st, during the hours of 8:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. for the primary elections. We will go over this information again as the evening goes on. The format for tonight's event will be as follows. Outside of the initial introduction and closing questions, which candidates will have 3 minutes to respond to, each candidate will have 2 minutes to answer the question that has been emailed in. The order of who will answer first has been decided by a coin flip before we began. After the first has had their time to go, the other will have 2 minutes to answer as well. Following the initial 2 minutes, candidates will have an additional 60 seconds to respond or expand on their answer, after which the second person to answer will also have an additional 60 seconds. We'll follow this format throughout the evening. So, starting off with Mr. Worwood, you'll have 3 minutes to answer probably the easiest question of the evening. Just introduce yourself to the public.
Hi, and I appreciate the opportunity to come to this Meet the Candidate. I'm Dennis Worwood. I live in Farron. I've been in Emery County since 1982. I was born and raised in Nephi. Did my schooling at Brigham Young University and then at Utah State. And then I was employed from 1982 to 2018 as the Utah State University Extension Agent in Emery County. So I've met a lot of people in the county, and I've been in every community multiple times. My wife, Sherry, is from Farron, and her family is from Farron. So of Sherry's 9 siblings, 7 live in Farron. And then we have 6 sons. 5 of our sons live in Farron, and 19 grandkids. So Farron has a lot of our influence there, or else Farron has influenced a lot of us. I'm interested in running for commission because I'm concerned about the future of the county. My office, when I was working, was in the courthouse, so I'm very familiar with what commissioners do and how the county functions. I think we face some real challenges at this time, and I'd like to see us have a more diverse economy. I'd like to see what we can do to ease the tax burden on the taxpayers, and I'd like to see us have a functioning but civil government. So those are some of my priorities. Again, I've got to meet a lot of people during the campaign. Appreciate the hospitality and kindness that's been shown, and just look forward to this evening and the election.
Thank you, Mr. Sebring. Or Mr. Worwood. Mr. Sebring, just if you would like to introduce yourself to the public, you have 3 minutes.
My name's David Sebring. I was born in Bombay, India, adopted to some wonderful parents when I was 6 months old. So I've been in Emery County my whole life, served a mission in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Upon returning, did my schooling at CEU back then, now known as USU Eastern. Then met my wife, Holly, and we moved to Cedar City and finished our schooling there. Had the opportunity to move back. I currently serve as president of Genco Mine Service and manage that day to day. We've been able to grow our little business. Recently completed a new manufacturing facility, but in the process of that, my desire to run for county commission came from with the tax burden and seeing the real struggle of our employees as these tax increases hit. As a small business owner, it's been hard to navigate through it a little bit, and we've been able to do it. But I think there's some things that can be done. I think I can bring a new perspective to the commission office, and so with that, that's kind of my desire to run. We do have 3 children, so I would like to have them to have the opportunity to come back if they choose to. I feel like currently our kids can't come back, or it's harder to come back because of jobs, and so I feel there's some things, to diverse our economy and do some things, and I feel confident that I can bring a perspective owning and managing small businesses here in our county.
Thank you, Mr. Sebring. Now we'll get into the questions that were emailed in to election 2024 at KOAL.net. So again, starting with you, Mr. Worwood. Whereas President Biden signed an executive order, aka 30 by 30, in January of 2021 that calls for 30% of all public land to be administered under conservation management rather than multiple use sustained yield management, what can you, as an Emery County Commissioner, do to protect our economy, mineral extraction, energy production, historical farm ranch lifestyles, livestock grazing on public lands, timber harvesting, watershed production, and motorized mechanized recreation? You will have 2 minutes.
Okay, thank you. Public lands we could talk about for a long time. I was on the original Public Lands Council for Emery County and served in that capacity for 10 years. And so I'm familiar with the laws that govern public lands and also some of the attitudes in Washington. And the attitudes change with just about every administration. So we can hope that we get an administration that doesn't have those kind of priorities or those kind of mandates coming down. But I think one thing that the county can do is just stay involved in the management of the land. Emery County has been quite proactive in public land management and in putting forth proposals to help satisfy some of the concerns that Congress has about public land. And I think we can continue that. So I'm familiar with it. We need to just keep fighting. We need to work through our people in Washington, and we need to challenge the administration when they do things that are unlawful.
Thank you, Mr. Worwood. Mr. Sebring, would you like me to repeat the question?
No. I believe that we have been very proactive with helping manage our lands, and I continue to believe that is vital to kind of keep our thumb on it and to be involved. I think working with the state closely to petition them to help us fight with Washington and with our representatives to really push that issue. As a county, I would say that we will fight as a community and as a commission to keep it open and to continue to have the great things we have. Big things for me and personally, my business is mining. I know it's not popular with this current administration, and so we can hope that we get a new administration that's a little more friendly to mining, and for the ranchers, the great thing is as long as they have their own land, there's constitutional things that protect us from that. So I would just say we need to continue to be proactive as a county to stay involved and not let the federal come in too much.
Thank you, Mr. Sebring. Mr. Worwood, you will have 60 seconds to respond if you'd like it.
Okay, and I think Dave brought up a number of good points. On the mining, one thing that we can do there is work more closely with the school institutional trust lands, because they traded for some of our coal leases when they've gotten state sections traded out of the Grand Staircase or out of the Bears Ears. The state is always looking for ways to make money. So hopefully that would streamline some of the permitting, because I know they picked up a bunch of gas lease land and also coal lease. So as Dave said, we need to work closely with the state as well.
Well, thank you, Mr. Worwood. Mr. Sebring, you will also have 60 seconds to respond. All right, we will move on to the next question then. When Emery County did their public lands bill, it was believed that it would stop the federal government and agencies like the BLM from closing off more land for multiple use. That is proven to not be true. What will you do as a commissioner to fight the loss of more access to public land in Emery County? Mr. Sebring, we'll start with you on this one.
So I've learned with the government and small business that they play by different rules a little bit, and so as a county I would probably lean on our general counsel and the people in that department to kind of give us guidance, and we would fight a little bit, but I would think that just understanding what we're doing as a county is good. I know in my business it's good to surround yourself with smart people, and I believe we have that in our community. And as far as what the past commission has done, it's, going forward, I would like to think I would handle that differently, and I would rely on good people to point us in a positive direction.
Thank you, Mr. Sebring. Mr. Worwood, you will have 2 minutes as well.
Okay, I think some of the concerns are coming from the current travel management plan that's been proposed, and there are a number of alternatives. It remains to be seen what's going to come of that. They go everywhere from a fairly restrictive one to one that would actually open more miles of roads than we currently have. And so I know that there's a subcommittee on the Public Lands Council that's been working closely with the BLM and following that, and there are also state agencies that are there that are prepared to go to court if needed. One thing we need to understand about multiple use on the BLM, it was that in 1976 Congress passed FLTMA, which is the Federal Lands Policy and Management Act, which tells the BLM how to do their business, and it is a multiple use document, but that is also the document that made BLM land eligible for wilderness. So we need to understand that Congress considers wilderness and other similar designations to be part of the multiple use spectrum. And so you're almost talking a different language when you're talking to Congress, and we need to be aware of Congress's views and then protect those routes and be willing to be able to document them and follow up with legal action if needed.
Thank you, Mr. Worwood. Mr. Sebring, you will have 60 seconds to respond. Mr. Worwood, then, if you will also have 60 seconds if you'd like to expand on your answer.
I would just encourage people to come to Public Lands Council, and they have a trails group that meets before the Public Lands Council, and I've been to some of those meetings, and I know that they're looking at maps, and the BLM people are there. They're talking about it. We just need to realize that the public land management changed drastically for the BLM in 1976, and that we need to be aware of those laws and aware of what we can do as we're trying to maintain our access are the important things to us, because we are connected to those lands by 1,000 cords.
Thank you, Mr. Worwood. Moving on, how do you plan on promoting economic growth in Emery County with the recent decline in coal production? Mr. Worwood, we'll start with you on this one.
Okay. Well, I think the first thing we need to do is see if we can keep the power plants running, which would keep the coal mines operating, which would keep the truckers in business, and also the various support industries. And the county commission doesn't determine whether or not the power plant's going to close in 2032 or 2042 or 2052. But we can see that there are tools in place so that the power company has options. For example, in Wyoming, they have gotten some certifications up there so that they can permit wells, for example, to inject carbon dioxide that they could capture. So there are things that we can do as a county, and a lot of that's going to have to be pressure applied at the state or even federal level to see that we have the tools available. There's some research being done right now to look at other things that can be extracted from coal, such as rare earth minerals. We can look at that, but I can't imagine that would keep the coal mines going at the capacity they're going now. And the other thing I would say is we need to diversify and look at other industries to go along with what we've got.
Thank you, Mr. Worwood. Mr. Sebring, you'll have 2 minutes as well.
Will you repeat the question?
Yes. How do you plan on promoting economic growth in Emery County with the recent decline in coal production?
So one thing is what I would like to focus on is working with our local business that's here. I feel sometimes we're trying to find the next big thing, and I know from our experience with our company, we were able, and continue to grow our business. And I think there's great businesses here, and I believe that I would like to work with all the small business here and help them grow to just kind of reach their potential. As our company, we do 80% of our business is out of the state of Utah. As coal has declined, we reached out and have been successful in expanding our business. And so that would be kind of my thing I would focus on, is being able to help our businesses that are here first to grow those if they choose to. And then obviously, Pacific Corp is a very large piece of our economy here. But at the end of the day, they're going to do what's best for their stockholders and shareholders and things like that. And so I think it's important to work with who we have here currently, and as we get our tax burden and things like that in line, then I think it can entice to bring other business here. So
thank you, Mr. Sebring. Mr. Worwood, you will have 60 seconds if you'd like it.
Okay, thank you. I think Dave's business is a good example of how a company has diversified and looked beyond just the county boundaries, and I do agree that we need to do more of that. I think we also need to be aware of opportunities that are coming in. So, for example, a couple of weeks ago, I learned about a large packing company that's looking to relocate somewhere in rural Utah. They would be processing about 100 hogs and about 50 beef a day. And so I've notified some of the mayors to see if they might be interested. I don't have any idea where they're looking to locate. There are things coming along, and economic development, when you're fishing for companies to come in, that's tough. There's a lot of casting and not much catching. But I still think we need to have our eyes open there and then look at the local businesses as well.
Thank you, Mr. Worwood. Mr. Sebring, you'll have 60 seconds as well if you'd like it.
Just going on with trying to grow from within. I visit with some other companies as well coming, and it is interesting to talk to them, because as our employees, as their escrow accounts have moved with the latest tax hike, it is hard on a small business. And so I think it's important, as these other businesses, these are all other things they're going to look at as they come to here. They need to know what it's going to cost them to operate, those kind of things. And so that's why it's vital to me to work with the ones that we have here, and then also reach out and try to bring some other things here.
Thank you, Mr. Sebring. Moving on to the next question. What steps have you taken to learn about the position of commissioner? I.e., have you attended commission meetings? Have you met with department supervisors? Have you studied previous budgets? Do you know the current amount of debt that is carried over year to year? Mr. Sebring, we will start with you on this one.
I do tend to zoom in. I guess that's the word, zoom, or watch from my office, or if I'm on the road. I have had conversations with some department heads. One thing I think in our county that we face some challenges is some of our biggest employers are government agencies. And so I have worked with the school district, just visiting with them to see where we can cut some costs. I've talked to a few departments. I have tried to look at the budget a little bit, but sometimes it's kind of difficult to find that on our Emery County website. As far as our debt load, my understanding is I think we have very little debt. We've been in a pretty good position as a community with our industries here. So, but I haven't really. There's a lot of unknown, I believe. I think that there hasn't been transparency like I would like it to be. And that's part of another reason I would like to work as a commissioner. Is I've learned in our business is you're transparent and you work with your people, good things can happen. So
thank you, Mr. Sebring. Mr. Worwood, would you like me to repeat the question?
Yeah, please.
What steps have you taken to learn about the position of commissioner? I.e., have you attended commission meetings? Have you met with department supervisors? Have you studied previous budgets? Do you know the current amount of debt that is carried over year to year? You will have 2 minutes.
Okay, thank you. I think Dave's right. It can be a little bit tough when you go online to try to find some of that information. I have viewed some of the commission meetings. I've been to some of the Public Lands Council meetings. I've been to some economic development meetings. I've toured the energy research facility near Orangeville. So, and then I know the county elected people and a lot of people that work in the courthouse because I worked there for so long. So I've had conversations with them. I don't know exactly how much debt we're carrying. But I have a pretty good idea of how the county functions. I have looked at some past budgets. Of course, we had a big jump in the property tax this year. The state basically said you're going to increase the taxable amount of your assessment, and so that's what happened, and everybody's taxes went up. I've been around the county government a long time. I've seen a lot of commissioners come and go. I've seen a lot of other offices come and go. So I'm familiar with that, and I do need to dig in more and look forward to the opportunity to learn more of the nitty-gritty of the budget and some of those things.
Thank you, Mr. Worwood. Mr. Sebring, you will have 60 seconds to respond if you'd like it.
One other thing, in talking to some of the department heads, I manage a little bit different. I believe in giving them the tools they need. I don't feel that, I think the commissioners need to be aware, but I think in order for the departments to be successful, we need to allow them to manage their departments and report. That would be one style of commission, bringing that to the commission office is just more of letting the department heads really manage and not, and give them the tools to do their job.
Thank you, Mr. Sebring. Mr. Worwood, you'll have 60 seconds as well if you'd like it.
Okay, man. And I can agree with that those people know their job, and I think we have some really good people for the most part, and we need to let them do their job. With regard to transparency, I think that in commission meetings, anybody watching that meeting or reading about that meeting should have a very clear idea of what the commissioner's stance is and why they have that stance. And from some of the meetings I've seen, that doesn't always come through very clearly. And the other thing I would say about transparency is I think we need to make sure that the transparency works both ways, that the commissioners have a good avenue to find out what the public is thinking, and that would be a priority as well.
Thank you, Mr. Worwood. Moving on to the next question. In your opinion, what are the top 3 issues facing Emery County, and how do you plan to fix those issues? Mr. Worwood, we will start with you. You will have 2 minutes.
Well, we could probably use a pro hockey team here, maybe. No. I think the future of our energy industries probably rises to the top, because if we lost the power plants prematurely, that would be catastrophic. And so that doing what we can again to help those businesses stay around would be a top priority. I think we need to continue the emphasis on public land and making sure that our access is protected and our uses are protected. And one thing that's often forgotten is our water rights are protected, because a lot of what the Public Land Council did and does is actually aimed at protecting water rights, because those are kind of tied to public land. Third thing I'd like to look at is education, and I think we've got some really good people in education. I would like to see, and I realize that the commission is not the school board, but I think that we need to make sure that our children are getting the kind of education that will prepare them for the future life, and maybe providing some hands-on type education that would help them to step into some businesses or to take on an entrepreneurial spirit. I think those would be good things.
Thank you, Mr. Worwood. Mr. Sebring, you will also have 2 minutes.
Will you repeat the question?
In your opinion, what are the top 3 issues facing Emery County, and how do you plan to fix those issues?
So, probably the economy is by far, as we're having a declining population, and then with the uncertainty of Pacific Corp, I think the problem that's happened, in my opinion, is that we should have been trying to entice. We've rode the power plants and the mines for several years, and so I don't think we were forward thinking then, and so that's probably the top one I think that's facing us. The other thing that with the school district, I've tried to work with them, just visiting as a business owner, because they do take such a large portion of our property tax, is the school's bill is being built, but we didn't build that school to take growth. So again, that's concerning to me. The other thing is with infrastructure. In order to grow our county, to have some motels here or some restaurants or housing developments. Currently I have 4 people looking for a home that we've brought back from Cedar City and a few different places, and they can't find homes. And so the big thing would be the economy, our decline in population, and then the school. Just there's some things there that I won't go into, and then just infrastructure. We need to have some things in place in order to take growth.
Thank you, Mr. Sebring. Mr. Worwood, you will have 60 seconds to expand upon or respond if you'd like it.
Okay. Along kind of the same lines, I think that we do have a housing problem, and part of the challenge we face is that what I'm seeing in Farron, at least, is a lot of the homes that come on the market are being bought by either people as second homes that are coming in from the Wasatch Front or from out of state, or they're being turned into Airbnbs. And then I think Dave alluded to the population decline. I think we're also getting quite a bit older. There used to be 8 people living in our house. Now there are 2. And that's a pretty common thing in Farron, and I think throughout the county. So we do need some opportunities to keep young people here and have them make a living wage. And so those are challenges that we need to address.
Thank you, Mr. Worwood. Mr. Sebring, you will also have 60 seconds if you would like it.
And one way to kind of fix, we've been working with the school. We manufacture a trailer utility trailer line, and we've been able to have a lot of the high school kids actually come get real life experience. And so I think that's key to get the kids a little excited. The biggest problem that we're facing is that, for years we were able to operate on different wages, and now it's like we need to pay the Wasatch Front wages, and it's hard to do because, Emery County does have some logistics that we've learned. There are some logistic problems with where we sit, but we have seen success as well, and so I just wanted to elaborate on having the high school kids come help us in our business.
Thank you, Mr. Sebring. Moving on to our next question. Do you believe that tax incentives are necessary to attract new businesses to Emery County? Mr. Sebring, we'll start with you, and you will have 2 minutes.
This is a tricky one because most large businesses do want some kind of tax incentive, and now it's a balancing act to the businesses that have been here for several years and operated, it's probably hard to say, Amazon, come here, we're going to give you 10 years, but yet Magnuson Lumber and all these other companies we've had to operate without tax incentives. And so, but I think it's important to look at it from an economic impact, because if somebody like Amazon wanted to come here, the reality of it is they bring far greater economic impact than what my companies can do. And so I think it's a tricky question. I do know of a company that is going to ask for some tax abatements, but it'll be a decision that needs to be made based on economic impact.
Thank you, Mr. Sebring. Mr. Worwood, would you like me to repeat the question?
No, I think I've got it. As Dave said, I think you need to be really careful about incentives. You may need to do something to compete with other areas that are wanting to attract businesses, but you do need to try to be fair to those that have been there. And then sometimes you can give more incentives than you get back in benefit. Now, I know in talking to the mayor of Price, there's some feeling that Price may become a bedroom community for the Wasatch Front as more people try to commute into there. And even that brings problems because sometimes just housing developments don't return as much in revenue as they take in upkeep. So each one of those things that need to be looked at on a case-by-case basis, but I think we need to be proactive about inviting business and trying to grow local business, but we need to be careful and make sure that we're not giving away the farm.
Thank you, Mr. Worwood. Mr. Sebring, you will have 60 seconds to expand or respond if you would like it.
Just if we did give an abatement or an incentive to come here, I would just probably want in the language that the company would have to, to offset it, there would need to be X amount of jobs brought without hurting our small local current businesses. With, the idea would be is that they would bring people versus rob my employees or take from the school district or somewhere like that. So those would just be things that as we have these conversations.
Thank you, Mr. Sebring. Mr. Worwood, you will also have 60 seconds if you would like it.
Okay, thank you. I think there's kind of a chicken and egg here. It's kind of like tourism. You need certain infrastructure to be able to take advantage of tourism, but you need to have tourists in order to build the infrastructure, and which comes first. I know in Green River they had some large businesses come in on the west side of town, and housing was an issue, and that business actually built housing for its employees. So these are all challenges. We've been through it when they constructed the power plants. I think we have some capacity to house people at least temporarily until we could get more permanent housing available. But these are all logistical problems, and frankly, maybe be a good problem to have for a change, is to be able to find housing for employees or people coming in.
Thank you, Mr. Worwood. Moving on, do you prefer raising property taxes on homeowners or reducing services or layoffs to balance the budget? Mr. Worwood, we'll start with you, and you will have 2 minutes.
Well, I don't think raising property taxes would be a very good thing right now. You might get tarred and feathered. And I'm not sure that layoffs would be required either. I think my first approach to the whole problem would be to go to the department heads and the departments and the employees and just look at, I think they probably have ideas of how we can streamline and things that could be done. I think that we need to look pretty hard at also at the same time trying to expand our tax base and getting more businesses coming in or more industry coming in that could help pay the taxes. But I think I would start by asking the people who are most familiar with the budgets and then maybe giving them some goals to shoot for and then go from there.
Thank you, Mr. Worwood. Mr. Sebring, would you like me to repeat the question?
No. So, I guess I look at as the government of being in the business of people. This is a conversation I've had. As far as layoffs, that's not a fun thing to do. I've had to do it throughout my career. Now, I have always tried to find them jobs before we do this. But raising property tax, I don't think that's the answer. I do believe I've found in government that maybe there's wasteful spending, but part of some of the things I've wanted to look at the budget is just in preparation, I'd like to try to understand it more. I think there's things we can do. I do believe we have smart department heads, and I do think there's some things we can do, but as I've mentioned before, our county is a little unique with having some of our government agencies, government being some of the largest employers, and so naturally government they really don't like to lay off, or they like to just pass it on to taxpayers. And so that would be my perspective as coming in, as it is not a fun thing to do to lay off, but if I think we could get a little more creative in doing some things.
Thank you, Mr. Sebring. Mr. Worwood, you will have 60 seconds to respond if you would like it.
Okay. I think in a public land county like ours, it's not unusual to have a pretty high percentage of government people. If you look at Garfield or Wayne or some of those others, just because of the volume of land that's public, you have public employees. I think it would be helpful to compare our budget with some other counties maybe that were kind of equivalent. And then another thing we could probably do is look at some ways to generate other funding besides just raising property taxes. So, for example, I know I'm familiar with the weed and mosquito department because I've worked with them for years and years. I know that in the past 10 years they brought in over $1 million in grants. So there may be some things like that that could help, but we need to I'm not in favor of raising property taxes anymore.
Thank you, Mr. Worwood. Mr. Sebring, you will also have 60 seconds if you would like it.
Yeah, I would just reiterate, I think there are some things we can do within, but raising property tax, I'm not for that at all. So,
thank you, Mr. Sebring. Moving on to our next question. The working relationship between the Emery County Commissioners has not been great over the last couple of years. What will you do to foster a productive working relationship with the two other commissioners? Mr. Sebring, we will start with you on this one. You will have 2 minutes.
So I deal with lots of different people in my career, and so I've learned, and even within our company, we have very diverse, different personalities. But what I have learned, if we focus on the positive in people, that and you focus on the good and not necessarily the negative, which I know it's hard to do. Negative seems to be easier to focus on than the good, but I found that good things can happen. I'm not worried about the current. I mean, I've seen what we're discussing, but that's, I'm not a screamer and a loud person. There's constructive, we can have nice conversation away from, being in front of everybody. And so one of the things I would like to do is meet prior to commission meeting and just make sure we're all on the same page, and if we're not, just kind of table it and give the community a explanation of why. So, but as far as that goes, I think if we focus on the good, everybody has some good in them. So I think if we focus on that, good things happen.
Thank you, Mr. Sebring. Mr. Worwood, would you like me to repeat the question?
No, thank you. When I was elected to the Ferentz City Council, we had kind of a similar situation. Before I got in there, you would have arguments, and sometimes a city council person or more than one would storm out. And so there were a couple of people that came in at the same time as I did. And the first meeting, there were three ladies that sat in the back and just watched. And we got to the end of the meeting, do you have a concern? No. And then the next meeting, the same thing. And the third meeting, the same thing. And I went up to him, asked afterward, and said, well, why are you coming to the council meeting? She said, we come to see the fights, but you guys don't fight. And so they quit coming. But we just got to recognize, and what I learned in city council and what I've learned in a lot of the committees I've been on, is that people have different ideas, and that's part of the genius of our system of government, is that you bring together people with different ideas who, if they're willing to work together, can maybe come up with solutions that are better than they would have individually. That's the ideal. Doesn't happen much in Washington. Hopefully can happen at a local level. So I've worked with lots and lots of committees, lots and lots of governments. We're not going to agree on everything, but we don't need to have fireworks. I think that we can express your opinion clearly and say why you believe as you do, listen to the other person's opinion, and look at the bigger picture. What are we trying to accomplish, and then move forward from there.
Thank you, Mr. Worwood. Mr. Sebring, you'll have 60 seconds if you would like.
And I think it is important that not everybody agrees. That's what makes good things happen. So I think as we get into this, and everybody's gonna have differing opinions, but I think it's just to work through it as a commission. So.
Thank you, Mr. Sebring. Mr. Worwood, you'll have 60 seconds as well.
Okay, I just add that I know all of the commissioners we have now. I'm friends with all the commissioners, and we just need to recognize that they have the right to an opinion, and I have my right to an opinion, and let's get it out there, and then let's do what's best for the county. That's my approach to it, and I certainly think that's possible.
Thank you, Mr. Worwood. Looking at our next question, how will you work to promote transparency in county government and making sure that residents of Emery County are informed and involved in the decision-making process? Mr. Worwood, we will start with you, and you will have 2 minutes.
Okay. Well, I think there are some mechanisms in place to promote that, and having the commission meetings being able to be streamed is a big thing. I think we need to make sure that that things are posted as they need to be. And in working with public land, one thing we did is we actually went into the communities. So we may need to do more public hearings. We may need to go to city council meetings or hold special meetings to tell people kind of where we're at and get their feedback. I think those are things that we can do and that I've already been involved in, and those are very helpful. Because rumors get rampant, and if you can have a meeting and lay things out and explain it in a way, then you can get honest feedback, and I think people would be much more, at least, understanding of what's going on. And as I mentioned earlier, we need to have the feedback coming both ways. It needs to come back to the commission as well.
Mr. Sebring, would you like me to repeat the question?
No. So one thing I would like to do is again, I'm always, I tell everybody at our business is my door is always open to visit, and so I would be very active to do that. The other thing is with social media, I would probably want the secretary to be very open and honest on on Facebook. I think holding meetings, public meetings at normal times would be a good thing. So we would be very transparent as and I've learned that you get feedback. It works. We recently bought a new piece of equipment at our shop, and I didn't even have anything to really do with it outside of I let our guys go out and do it, and I just saw the morale change. And so I think as a county, if we can get the input of the public and just be open with them, I think the morale can change.
Thank you, Mr. Sebring. Mr. Worwood, you'll have 60 seconds to respond or expand if you would like it.
Okay. Well, I agree with what Dave said, and I think that I think we have a lot of good people in the county, and I think from my experience in the city council, sometimes you propose things and you're going to get all kinds of feedback, and some people will like it and some people won't. In one city council meeting, I had a friend of mine that stood up, and it wasn't a big thing, but he pointed at me and he says, "I ain't so old I can't lick you yet." And I said, "Well, maybe you can beat me up, but it won't change my mind." And he sat down. But you've got to realize that people have different opinions, and you need to put out good information so they can make an informed opinion and then try to move ahead with what's best for the county.
Thank you, Mr. Worwood. Mr. Sebring, you will also have 60 seconds. All right, moving on then. How many hours a week will you dedicate to working on the business of Emery County? Mr. Sebring, we will start with you, and you will have 2 minutes.
So as my wife and I discussed this and made the decision, we feel right now our business, we have really, really good people that are running the companies, and but I'm not sure as far as what's required to be there. I'm more of a out in the public and out selling and promoting our county, and so that's I would make sure one day a week I want to be in the office, but I'm always able to you can always get a hold of me. And so in order to grow the county, is part of my thing, it'd be promoting as in my career I have to go and approach large companies on my own, and so I would spend a lot of time working with the state and trying to bring some businesses here and just kind of prospect is what I would do. And so as far as that goes, I do have the time to do it because of our good employees that are running the companies. So
thank you, Mr. Sebring. Mr. Worwood, you will have 2 minutes as well.
Okay, well, I think the short answer is just as many as it takes. I've watched a lot of commissioners come and go, and I know there's more hours put in than what people recognize, and a lot of the work is not done when you're sitting in the office, and Dave has kind of alluded to that. I think that I would have time. I have time to go to some of the meetings, to visit with different departments, to visit with different communities, talk to the mayors, talk to other people, talk to people upstate. So whatever it takes, and even if that's odd hours, not all your business is done 9 to 5, and in fact some of it has to be done outside regular work hours, and I'm prepared to do that.
Thank you, Mr. Worwood. Mr. Sebring, you will have 60 seconds to respond.
Just part of being out and about is I have been able to go to some of the city councils, and I would be active with each city to try to help them identify areas of where they'd like to grow and things, if they have property and things like that. So but I would really rely also on the department heads. I found in our business it's great to let people manage and do their thing without me on top, breathing down their neck. And so I would be involved, but not to probably the same level as what has been in the past.
Thank you, Mr. Sebring. Mr. Worwood, you'll have 60 seconds as well.
Okay, well, all good ideas, and I've been to the city councils as well, and I'll share our experience in Emery. We went to city council in Emery and discovered that they had canceled their city council meeting, and but there were cars at the city center, and we went over, and they were having a bingo night, and so my wife won $75 at the bingo night. So it was a really productive evening, but actually quite a few of the city council members were there. So I think, again, just being out and about, knowing people, asking what their opinions are, and getting some of the local leaders, I think they can give you really good feedback.
Thank you, Mr. Worwood. Now, before we get into the final question, I'd like to thank both of you for taking the time out of your schedules to be here with us. This event has been very informative and engaging. And again, for this closing question, you'll each have 3 minutes to respond, much like the introductory question. So, in closing, why should the residents of Emery County vote for you? Mr. Worwood, we will start with you.
Oh, okay. Well, I've had a lot of experience in government. I've been a lot of experience in various subcommittees or public lands. I've been on planning and zoning boards. I've been on economic development council. I've been on city councils. So I have the experience, and I'm retired. I do have the time to do it. I have a great regard, a high regard for the people of Emery County, and I've met a lot of them through the years. They're ingenious people, they're hardworking people, they're problem solvers, they're good-hearted, they're people that want to do the right thing, and I'd just like to continue to be able to serve them. That's why they should vote for me.
Thank you, Mr. Worwood. Now, Mr. Sebring, why should the residents of Emery County vote for you? You'll have 3 minutes.
I think I bring a different perspective. Like I say, I haven't served in a lot of these capacities. My real desire came when I've seen our employees struggle with, no fault of their own on the tax increase. But I think I'm able to bring a little different perspective to the commission office, and having our own business to be able to, if other business wants to come here, as they start looking at cost of living and things, that we can say, hey, it can be done here. It's challenging. I also believe I can just bring a different style of commission than we've had in the past. As far as coming from the private sector, I think it's important. I do believe I'll have a learning curve on, having your own private business. You can make decisions. I know in government there's processes and steps, but I think we can adapt and kind of be able to do some things that are a little bit different. But my desire is really, I love Emery County. We put a lot of money into the community, to the kids, to the sports, to the stock show, things like that. And so we believe in Emery County. We want to see it succeed, and I just feel now's the time. I'm not looking to be a long-term commissioner. I'm 42 years old. I would hope for 2 terms to try to steer us in a positive direction, and so. But I assure you, if you guys trust me, we will build this county, and we'll steer it in the right direction.
Thank you, Mr. Sebring. Mr. Worwood, you will have a minute to respond or expand if you would like it.
Okay. I'm hoping for 1 term. In all my years here, I've never seen a commissioner elected to a 3rd term. But what I'd like to do is hit it hard, see what we can do to provide a little more certain future. There's just a lot of apprehension in the county right now with the ups and downs of the power and coal industry, and hopefully we can get some kind of resolution or something that we can at least plan on and then move ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Worwood. Mr. Sebring, you will also have a minute if you would like it.
And when I say 2 terms, I feel like the first term would be just trying to get your feet wet and really work with our local and stuff, and then the second term being able to really push through and do some things. And so but again, it comes down to just I do love Emery County, and we want to see it grow.
Thank you, Mr. Sebring. And again, I would like to thank both of you for taking the time out of your schedule to come sit down with this event. In my opinion, events like these are very important to keeping the public engaged and involved with local elections. We'd also like to thank the Emery County School District and Castledale Elementary for graciously letting us use their facilities. Again, early voting will begin at the Emery County Clerk and Auditor's Office, located at 75 East Main Street in Castledale, beginning Tuesday, June 11th, and that will run until Friday, June 21st, during the hours of 8:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. For the primary election, in-person voting for the Republican primary will take place on Tuesday, June 25th, from 8:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. in the Emery County Clerk and Auditor's Office. For those mailing in ballots, the last day those can be postmarked is Monday, June 24th. Again, you've been watching Meet the Primary Candidates for the Emery County Commissioner. You can also watch or listen to this on demand on our YouTube channel, KOAL, Castle Country Focus, or on our website, castlecountryradio.com. And from all of us here, thank you for listening to KOAL 107.3 FM and 750 AM. And for KOAL News, I'm Aidan Mortensen. Good night.